Hi, I'm Chris, and in this video we're taking a look at SAT Math Level 2 subject test material. So this is another question that one of my students had emailed me about this week, and there are a couple ways we can solve this. So if you remember a few questions ago, if you're watching our video series, we talked about how you can solve things algebraically and you can also use graphing calculators. So it's up to you when to use which method depending on your comfort level with the material. But for this, we'll talk through how to do both. First, let's talk through how to solve this algebraically. So when this is less than 0, what we want to do is essentially pretend that it's equal to 0. How would you find the actual zeros themselves or the roots of a function like this? So hopefully when you look at this, you say, as your first instinct, well, maybe I can factor it. And that's a good instinct to have. Anytime we have a quadratic, we want to try to factor it. We could always solve using quadratic formula or completing the square. But if we try to factor it, we might find out that it works out kind of nicely, as it does in this case, to nice whole number factors. So the values of x equals -2, when you set each one equal to 0, and x equals -1, those would be the values of the zeros themselves. So we need to check and see where we're going to be less than 0. And again, you can do this by graphing it on a graphing calculator, but to solve that algebraically, let's take a look on a number line at where -2 and -1 fall. And let's take a look at, we know the shape of our graph. Since it's a quadratic function, that means it's going to be a parabola like this. So if we're looking on our axis, if these are the zeros, and our parabola has that shape, then if you were to kind of trace that shape in here, you can see that the negative values would be in between the -2 and the -1. The positive values would be what we have outside of the -2 and the -1. So for this graph, from -2 to -1 will be the range of x values where this function will be less than 0. So that's the first part of this. Now, let's take a look at applying that into this function. So we want to know the range of values for this function. The answer choices here are asking us what range of values could we possibly have given that this is the case. So we know if our x values are between -2 and -1, then we want to see what possible y values we could get for this function by plugging in the ends of that range of x values, meaning we're going to plug in a -2 in place of x and solve, and we're going to plug in a -1 in place of x and solve. So let's do that and see what we get for each. F of -2 would be -2 squared minus 3 times -2 plus 2. That's 4 plus 6 is 10 plus 2 is 12. And f of -1 would be -1 squared minus 3 times -1 plus 2, which would be 1 plus 3, which is 4, plus 2, which is 6. So the range of values for this function, f of x, would be from 6 to 12. And that's what you're going to look for in your answer choices on this question. For more, please feel free to check out our other videos, and thanks for watching.